The scene is usually silent. Sometimes it unfolds in a hospital bed, other times at home, surrounded by family, or even completely alone. The body simply stops moving. The heart ceases its rhythmic beat. The breath, which throughout life has come and gone without so much as a by your leave, takes its final, lingering sigh. But what many fail to realize is that at that precise moment, something else is still happening. Something profound and invisible to the naked eye. The soul, that core of consciousness residing within the body throughout life, begins its delicate process of detachment. It's not a sudden event, like flipping a light switch. It's more akin to the slow, careful untying of an age-old knot, one intertwined with countless years of experiences, a tapestry of emotions, a vast library of memories, and the sum total of all our choices. At this juncture, near-death experiences can offer a unique glimpse into what exactly takes place. People who have been clinically declared dead for a few fleeting minutes often describe remarkably similar sensations. A sudden feeling of lightness, an unexpected and profound peace, and a distinct sensation of detaching, of floating free from their physical body. Some people report actually seeing their own body from above, as if they were hovering near the ceiling, observing the scene unfold below. Others hear voices swirling around them, but are completely unable to interact or respond. Consciousness remains incredibly alive, startlingly awake, but irrevocably separated from its physical vessel. The separation of the soul and body is also an energetic process. Spiritual traditions often teach that we are connected to the body by energetic cords, referred to by some as the silver cord. This cord, which unites the physical body to the spiritual body, gradually becomes thinner and more fragile until it finally breaks, marking the definitive end of the connection to the material world. However, not every soul detaches easily or willingly. In cases involving sudden, traumatic deaths, or in individuals who were deeply attached to material possessions and earthly concerns, the detachment can be incredibly confusing and even excruciatingly painful. There is a significant shock. The soul sometimes desperately tries to remain grounded, not understanding why no one responds to its presence, why its cries for help or acknowledgement are completely ignored. It's like waking suddenly from a vivid, immersive dream and realizing, with a jolt, that you are no longer in the same place, that the world you knew has vanished. From an emotional perspective, the impact can be absolutely profound. Imagine someone who has lived their entire life believing that death was the absolute end, the final curtain, only to suddenly find themselves conscious, floating weightlessly above their own lifeless body, hearing the sounds of weeping and lamentation, feeling the vibrations of intense grief, but utterly unable to interact or communicate. It's the very beginning of a completely new cycle, but they are adrift, without a map, without any clear direction. For those who are more spiritually prepared, this moment is one of quiet acceptance and understanding. The soul instinctively grasps what is happening. It may even sense the presence of guides, spiritual friends, or benevolent beings of light who have come to offer support and gentle assistance. There is a tender, almost maternal welcoming, a hand extended from the other side of the veil. Everything truly begins with that final breath. But the true end, contrary to what many of us believe, is simply a brand new beginning. The soul is freed, liberated, yes, but it carries with it everything that was lived, every joy, every sorrow, every hard-earned lesson. It departs from the body, but it certainly does not leave empty-handed. What happens next, what unfolds after this pivotal moment, is what we will now begin to explore in greater depth. Imagine waking up in a place that feels vaguely familiar, yet utterly strange. The colors seem subtly different, more vibrant perhaps, or strangely muted. The sounds seem to be coming from both inside and outside you simultaneously, and the people around you act as though you are completely invisible, as if you simply aren't there. You scream, you reach out to touch them, but nothing happens. It's like being both present and completely invisible at the very same time. For many souls, this is precisely how awakening in the subtle plane begins. Right after the detachment from the physical body, consciousness does not simply fade away into nothingness. On the contrary, it often remains, sometimes even more lucid and sharply defined than ever before. The real problem is that the soul doesn't always immediately realize that it has actually died. And this profound lack of understanding creates deep, unsettling confusion. It realizes that something is fundamentally different, that the rules have changed, but it doesn't quite understand exactly what has happened. This disorientation arises because the soul still carries with it the lingering remnants of its physical life. It recognizes itself as the same self it was before, with the same thoughts, the same fears, the same memories. That's why it so often instinctively tries to continue its familiar routine. It attempts to go home, to talk to its children, to complete any unfinished tasks or business. But nothing responds to its touch anymore. Doors stubbornly refuse to open. Words go unheard, unanswered. People simply don't react. And this creates an intense, overwhelming feeling of isolation and profound anguish. Some souls may remain for days, or even weeks, aimlessly wandering around their former homes or near their lifeless bodies, especially when death occurs suddenly and unexpectedly. Accidents, heart attacks, or other unforeseen tragedies can leave the spirit in a state of profound shock, requiring considerable time to process and understand the new reality. It's like waking from a coma, but with no one nearby to explain where you are or what has happened to you. Some spiritual traditions, such as Spiritism, teach that this period immediately following death can be absolutely crucial for the soul's future development and journey. If it is overly attached to material possessions, to suffering, or to some unfinished mission or goal, it may remain stuck for a considerable time in what they refer to as the lower plane or the earth crust. This is a kind of liminal state, existing between worlds, where the soul can still feel the full weight of human emotions, but without a physical body to act upon them or express them effectively. At this critical moment, spiritual connections can make all the difference. If the soul cultivated a life of self-awareness, unwavering faith, or consistent good deeds, it tends to be assisted quite quickly. Spiritual guides appear, benevolent beings of light draw near, and they offer assistance and guidance with the transition. However, if the soul lived largely disconnected from these spiritual ties, the process may be considerably slower, more solitary, and potentially more challenging. Even so, it is never truly abandoned. It simply might take a little longer to perceive the subtle signs of help and guidance. Interestingly, some people in terminal states have reported seeing loved ones who have already passed away in their final days. These visitations, which many might dismiss as mere hallucinations, may actually be the soul's first tentative contacts with the subtle plane, a kind of pre-awakening in which it begins to feel the gentle call from the other side. It is also quite common in the first hours after death for the soul to closely follow what is happening with its physical body. The movements of the paramedics, the heartbroken weeping of family members, the arrival of close friends. All of this intensely contributes to the initial phase of utter confusion. The soul sees everything, feels everything, but is no longer part of the world in the same way it once was. And this jarring break from reality is often incredibly difficult to accept. The earthly clock continues its relentless ticking. But on the other side of the veil, time takes on an entirely different form. Still, for many spiritual traditions, from Kardas's Spiritism to Tibetan Buddhism, including esoteric currents of Hinduism, the first 7 days form a crucial passage, an energetic corridor in which the soul remains very close to material reality, grappling with the initial shock of realizing it is no longer within its physical body. The soul instinctively seeks familiar references. Some spirits choose to remain at the bedside or in the sterile hospital room, watching doctors fill out forms and nurses attend to their medical equipment. Others follow their grieving family members, hovering above the cars on the way to funeral homes, temples, or cemeteries. They are no longer in a hurry, but they carry a powerful inner urgency. They desperately need to understand what has just happened to them, and at the same time, they long to ensure that those they love will be okay. In this highly symbolic interval, the wake takes on a double importance. For the living, it's a deeply meaningful chance to say goodbye, to share cherished memories, and to offer each other mutual comfort and support. For the soul, it's the last opportunity to witness, almost from the front row, the impact of their departure. Every tear that is noticed, every heartfelt word of gratitude, every smile that is interrupted by a wave of longing shapes the departed's understanding of the legacy they have left behind. It is not uncommon for mediums or more sensitive people to describe feeling a gentle breeze, a sudden chill on the neck, or a sweet, comforting presence moving among the wreaths of flowers. These are often subtle signs that the soul is nearby, tentatively feeling its way through the familiar human ritual it belonged to until very recently. It perceives aromas, overhears conversations, sees photographs prominently displayed on the casket. All of this collectively helps to weave together the crucial understanding that its earthly cycle has finally come to an end, a necessary step in allowing itself to move forward. During these initial 7 days, the soul still vibrates at a frequency very close to that of matter. That's precisely why the emotions of the living act like air currents. They can gently push it toward the more luminous dimensions or keep it stubbornly stuck to the dense crust of unresolved resentments. Harsh cries of despair and phrases of denial, such as, "I simply cannot live without you," project powerful waves that bind, confuse, and delay the release. Sincere prayers, loving memories, and serene acceptance, on the other hand, act like small torches, brightly lighting the road ahead. Many cultures mark the 7th day with memorial masses, religious services, incense-burning rituals, or simple gatherings to share heartfelt stories. Spiritually, this is often said to be a magnetic closure. The energetic residues that are still tying the soul to its former dwelling gradually begin to dissolve. If the soul was able to accept death with grace, felt genuine support, and understood its new condition, its vibration rises, and a spiritual portal, often described as a tunnel of brilliant light, a shimmering silver bridge, or a shimmering blue mist gate, opens, inviting it to move forward on its journey. However, the process is certainly not mathematical or rigidly defined. There are accounts of spirits who pass through this stage within just a few hours, and others who, overwhelmed by attachment, linger for months. This 7-day period functions less as a strict deadline and more as a powerful archetype. It evokes the universal idea of a complete cycle, like the phases of the moon or the notes of a musical scale. Once this cycle is fulfilled, the soul possesses the minimum conditions necessary to distance itself from the dense frequency of Earth and enter more subtle transitional zones. For those who remain behind, knowing that their departed loved one can still perceive their vibrations can profoundly change how they experience grief. Transforming pain into gratitude, sharing stories that celebrate achievements, offering sincere prayers, or simply mentally sending love, contributes tangibly to the peace and well-being of the departed soul. For those reflecting on their own mortality, understanding the 7-day corridor can inspire them to live with fewer emotional loose ends, to actively cultivate forgiveness, and to build bridges instead of walls, all of which will greatly ease their own eventual transition when the time inevitably comes. After the initial 7 days, marked by the soul's strong presence near the physical plane, a quieter, but equally profound stage begins, the 40 days of farewell. It is during this pivotal period that the soul truly begins to detach from the lingering ties of material life and fully dives into a profound process that seamlessly combines review, healing, and liberation. This powerful idea of 40 days appears in various traditions and cultures. In Christianity, for example, Jesus is said to have remained among the living for 40 days after his resurrection before ascending to heaven. In Spiritism, this cycle is viewed as a deeply meaningful time of energetic purification. In Tibetan Buddhism, the bardo, the liminal interval between one life and another, can also last for this duration. Certainly no coincidence. The number 40 carries a universal symbolism of profound transformation and fundamental transition. During these 40 days, the soul undergoes a process that is remarkably similar to carefully opening an old book and leafing through every single page of the life it has just left behind. The central goal is not external judgment. No stern figure appears with a gavel or a scale to impartially declare whether it was ultimately good or bad. It's far more of an internal review. The soul revisits its choices, its feelings, and the underlying intentions that motivated each action. But here, there's a crucial and significant difference. It feels what it caused in others. If it hurt someone during its life, it now relives that precise moment from the perspective of the one who suffered. If it loved deeply and sincerely, it feels that boundless love again, with all the intense emotion it stirred within the other person. This is undoubtedly one of the most impactful and transformative processes of the afterlife. To profoundly understand the true effect of one's own actions, both good and bad, as if finally seeing the lasting echo left in every heart that was touched. At this stage, it is common for the soul to be gently accompanied by benevolent beings of light, often known in many spiritual paths as spiritual mentors. They are certainly not there to accuse or applaud, but rather to provide impartial help and compassionate guidance. They may show alternative paths that could have been chosen, help the soul to understand why certain sufferings occurred, and most importantly, to learn valuable lessons from them. There is, of course, no changing the past, but much can be learned from it. And that critical learning is the very key to true detachment, from lingering guilt, from lingering resentment, and from any idealizations that still stubbornly tie the soul to its previous existence. During these transformative 40 days, the soul's lingering ties to material bonds, home, cherished objects, career, any ingrained addictions, and even the people it loved, gradually begin to loosen. This certainly doesn't mean that it simply forgets those it loved. On the contrary, it recognizes those deep bonds in their purest form, completely free from the ego's illusions and the petty grievances that so often distort love on earth. However, to move forward on its spiritual journey, letting go is absolutely necessary. Many spirits at this point suffer greatly upon seeing family members clinging to them, inconsolable with grief, desperately trying to hold on to them energetically through constant thoughts of pain, promises never to forget, and solemn vows never to move on. The soul feels this intensely, and as much as love may be present, this kind of clinging attachment can weigh like heavy chains on the feet of someone who desperately needs to walk forward. It is also during this time that dreams involving the deceased often become far more intense and meaningful. The soul may approach loved ones to give subtle signs, important messages, or simply one last, lingering glance. The dreams feel incredibly vivid, intensely real, and full of powerful emotion, and often, they are, in fact, genuine encounters, a way for the soul to finally close lingering chapters, soothe aching hearts, and perhaps even ask for permission to gently depart. At the very end of the 40 days, a kind of final energetic release occurs. The soul, now significantly lighter and far more conscious of its ongoing journey, feels truly ready to enter more subtle dimensions. It says a final goodbye to Earth, but carries with it the genuine and lasting bonds, the loves that simply don't depend on physical presence, the crucial lessons it has learned, and the very essence of what it truly was. For the living, this pivotal moment can be felt in unexpected ways. A sudden, unexpected peace in the chest, a profound sense that now they are truly at peace, or even symbolic events, like a fleeting scent in the air, a specific song unexpectedly playing at an unusual time, or a butterfly landing in an unlikely spot, small, subtle signs that mark the beginning of the true departure. One of the most surprising discoveries for many people is realizing that even after the death of the physical body, the enduring connection between the one who has departed and those who remain continues to be remarkably active and deeply influential. In this delicate period, especially during the first few months after disincarnation, the emotions of the living strongly echo in the ongoing spiritual journey of the soul. It may initially seem like an exaggeration, but consider it this way. When we're alive and emotionally connected to someone, we can often sense when that person is unwell, even without a single word being spoken. Now, imagine that deeply ingrained connection without the filter of the physical body, without the barrier of the common senses. That's precisely what happens in the spiritual plane. Emotions become direct, energetic waves that reach the soul with absolute purity and intense clarity. As mentioned earlier, grief is completely natural. The raw pain of loss, the heartfelt crying, and the overwhelming longing are all an essential part of the human process of saying goodbye. But the real problem begins when that love morphs into desperate attachment, when the person left behind insists, consciously or unconsciously, on keeping the deceased tightly tied to their own pain. Phrases like, "I simply cannot live without you. Why did you leave me?" Or "Please, just come back to me," carry such immense emotional weight that they act like incredibly strong spiritual chains. The soul, which has already bravely begun its onward journey, feels that bond being pulled backward, and often, out of love and genuine concern, it returns. It stays nearby, attempting to offer comfort and trying to explain itself. But in doing so, it inevitably ends up confused, significantly delaying its own path forward. There are countless accounts of spirits who remain bound for months, and even years, around their loved ones, not out of any malice or ill intent, but because they feel a deep sense of responsibility. They feel they simply cannot leave while those they love are still in a state of emotional collapse. And this, in turn, can cause intense mutual suffering. The soul cannot rise and progress, and the living cannot heal and move forward. This certainly doesn't mean forgetting the departed loved one. Quite the opposite. It means honoring the precious presence that person had in your life without irretrievably tying their memory to persistent pain. True love never truly dissolves. It simply changes form. And when the soul finally feels free to move on, it can still visit you, inspire you, and gently calm you, because now there's finally space for that. There inevitably comes a moment after the initial process of detachment and comprehensive life review when the soul finds itself before a profound choice, or in some cases, an irresistible calling. It's the pivotal moment when spiritual portals open, inviting the newly freed consciousness to move forward on its expansive journey. But where exactly does it go? Is there a single, fixed destination, a definitive heaven and hell, a peaceful resting colony, or perhaps even a brand new world? The true answer is far less rigid than older doctrines used to portray, but also infinitely richer and more complex. The soul's ultimate destination is not a specific physical place, but rather a vibrational reflection of everything it has built internally throughout its entire existence. Spiritual portals are, in essence, passages of pure frequency. Some souls enter this expansive new plane gently guided by benevolent spiritual beings. Others instinctively feel an inner beacon, an irresistible call to move forward. There are also those who, even when freed from the limitations of the physical body, remain confused and stubbornly stuck, unable to access any of the available portals, usually due to deeply ingrained emotions like debilitating guilt, crippling fear, vengeful thoughts, or extreme attachment. These portals can potentially lead to many different destinations. One of the most well-known and detailed descriptions of these various destinations comes from the extensive spiritist literature of Chico Xavier's works. In books like Na Solar, psychographed by the spirit André Louise, genuine spiritual colonies are vividly portrayed as highly organized cities, complete with elaborate buildings, fully equipped hospitals, vast libraries, lush gardens, advanced schools, and dynamic study centers, where spirits progress through distinct phases of healing, extensive learning, and thorough preparation for brand new experiences. Numerous mediums from diverse countries report remarkably similar experiences. These are invariably high vibrational environments that are accessible to souls who, even with imperfections, live lives characterized by dignity, a strong ethical code, and a sincere desire to grow and evolve. Within these supportive environments, the soul is warmly welcomed, compassionately treated, and gradually reconnected with its deeper spiritual essence. Outside of these organized colonies, there exist what are generally referred to as astral planes. These expansive levels of existence do not have rigidly fixed divisions, but rather vibrational layers. The higher the soul's inherent frequency, the more luminous these planes become. Their time flows in remarkably different ways. Matter is far more malleable. Thoughts can readily create realities, and the experiences are intensely symbolic. In the denser planes, on the other hand, there are zones of significant confusion, intense suffering, and emotional entrapment. Some refer to this region as the threshold, while others call it the Valley of Shadows. Many mistakenly believe it to be a form of divine punishment, but it is, in reality, more of a direct reflection of unresolved thoughts and emotions. Not every soul goes directly to a pre-established colony or a specific plane. Many pass through various transition zones, places designed for initial observation, patient waiting, or basic initial treatment. Think of it like a triage room in a bustling hospital, where the soul is warmly received by mentors, undergoes preliminary vibrational assessments, and prepares for its ultimate destination. It's within these liminal spaces that many are joyfully reunited with family members who have already passed away, long-lost spiritual guides, or even benevolent entities who faithfully accompanied their lives without them ever realizing it. After all, does the soul truly choose where it ultimately goes? Yes and no. The soul doesn't consciously decide as if casually selecting a hotel from a catalog, but is naturally drawn to where its own vibration ultimately leads. However, souls with greater spiritual awareness, who actively worked inwardly during their lives, possess significantly more clarity at the moment of transition. They instinctively sense the spiritual portals opening, intuitively perceive the subtle invitations, and readily recognize the various paths available to them. This heightened clarity empowers them to choose more freely and allows their ongoing journey to continue with markedly less resistance. After successfully passing through the spiritual portals and arriving at its designated vibrational destination, the soul enters a new and transformative stage, the phase of spiritual treatment and extensive re-education. It's here that it begins to deeply understand everything it has lived, everything it has felt, and everything it still needs to evolve. But above all, this is where it ultimately finds healing. Because yes, the soul also carries profound wounds. Even when freed from the confines of the physical body, it may still carry significant emotional pain, lingering old traumas, deep-seated regrets, and burdens that weren't adequately resolved through death. And contrary to what many incorrectly believe, disincarnating is certainly not erasing everything and starting over from ground zero, because consciousness invariably continues to be itself. One of the soul's first experiences in these subtle worlds is the warm welcome into spaces specifically dedicated to energetic and emotional healing. In many traditions, these sacred places are described as luminous, silent rooms where specialized entities act with profound love and unwavering wisdom. There, the soul literally rests. There are even spirits who sleep soundly for days, weeks, or even earthly months. A deep, restorative sleep that is absolutely necessary to thoroughly reorganize their energetic structure. It's a decompression period, much like someone surfacing from a deep dive who needs to rise very gradually to avoid collapsing from the sudden pressure change. Others undergo far more active treatments. They receive gentle magnetic passes, are enveloped in subtle, healing vibrations, or actively participate in clarifying listening sessions with compassionate spiritual mentors. All of this is done with a single, overriding goal: to fully restore the being's inherent balance. After the initial rest phase, the soul is warmly invited to actively expand its consciousness. And this undoubtedly happens through extensive learning.
Look at the word revealed.
Not theoretical,
this is the
cold
truth
knowledge,
that was hidden from
but
us
a living
for
and
centuries,
applied wisdom.
now brought
there
into
are
the
vibrant
light by His
schools
grace.
in the subtle planes. Yes, schools. But here, the teaching is remarkably different. Learning comes not only from books, but also from profound experiences, immersive vibrational simulations, and ongoing sharing between spirits of vastly different levels. The soul revisits past mistakes, but now with absolute clarity. It keenly understands the true impact of its emotions. It learns about universal laws, such as cause and effect, vibration, tuning, and above all, universal love. And perhaps most importantly, it begins to understand who it truly is beyond the limitations of the ego, completely free from superficial titles, temporary names, fleeting appearance, and restrictive nationality. The soul finally finds itself as pure essence, and that profound realization alone is already a powerful form of healing. As it gradually grows stronger, the soul begins preparing for its next step. And no, this doesn't necessarily mean immediately reincarnating. There are numerous exciting possibilities. Some souls consciously choose to remain longer in the subtle planes, deepening their learning, assisting other transitioning consciousnesses, and developing skills in specific areas. They actively become agents of the spiritual realm, carrying out important missions of support, rescue, or inspiration among the living. Others, upon thoroughly understanding what they still need to develop, decide to bravely return to matter for a brand new incarnation. This critically important decision is certainly not made impulsively. It's a fully conscious process, discussed at length with trusted guides, and carefully adjusted with precision. Every key detail of the future existence is meticulously planned. The family environment, the inherent challenges, the unique gifts, and the significant meetings and partings that will serve as powerful triggers for continued evolution. We discuss at greater length how this critical decision is made in other videos. I highly recommend watching our playlist Mysteries of Life. Some may reasonably be wondering, can the soul actually visit Earth? Yes, the soul most certainly can. And in fact, it does so far more often than we can possibly imagine. This is not, however, about reincarnation. We're talking here specifically about spiritual visits. Meaningful moments when the soul, already disincinated, temporarily returns to Earth to observe, console, offer a measure of comfort, say a final goodbye, protect, or simply be near those it deeply loves. And these frequent visits invariably happen in ways that are so subtle they often go completely unnoticed. Others, however, are so overwhelmingly strong that there's absolutely no doubt they were there. There are numerous ways that the soul can manifest among the living, and they invariably vary depending on the spirit's individual evolution, its deep emotional connection to those who are here, and the specific purpose of the visit. Visits in dreams. This is one of the most common and undoubtedly most impactful forms. Anyone who has lost a loved one has likely experienced this, dreaming of that person in such a remarkably vivid, lifelike way that upon waking, it powerfully feels as though the encounter truly happened, and often it really did. These are certainly not ordinary dreams. They are actually astral plane meetings made possible by the release of the physical body during restful sleep. The soul of the incarnated person meets the soul of the disincarnated one. We exchange loving looks, comforting hugs, and heartfelt words that were sadly left unsaid in life, and we return with a much lighter heart, as though something profoundly important has finally been resolved. These meaningful dreams often contain strikingly clear details, vivid colors, distinct physical sensations, and transparent messages. We wake up and instinctively say, "It wasn't just a dream. I absolutely know they were here." And it is completely right to think that way. Subtle presences in daily life. Sometimes the soul doesn't overtly manifest visually, but instead, subtly leaves behind subtle traces. A familiar scent that seems to materialize out of thin air. A song that unexpectedly starts playing, its lyrics perfectly mirroring your feelings. An object that falls to the floor for no apparent reason. A gentle breeze offering comfort during a time of profound sadness. These are subtle signs, gentle assurances that someone is near. These manifestations tend to occur more frequently when a soul senses that someone they care about is in need of support. The soul approaches, observes, and offers comfort. It might not always directly intervene, but its mere presence can bring a sense of solace and strength. These are spiritual apparitions. In rarer instances, typically involving mediums or individuals who are naturally sensitive, the soul may even appear in an almost visible form. A silhouette, a light in the room, an image near the bedside, or sometimes even a voice. This isn't common, and not every soul has the permission or capacity to manifest in this way. These are protective interventions. There are situations where the soul, particularly if it already serves as a guide or protector, might directly intervene in the life of the person on Earth. It could prevent an accident, inspire a helpful decision, or gently guide them toward a change in direction. The person might experience a premonition, a strong intuition, or the feeling of an unseen hand guiding them. And that's precisely what's happening. How can we encourage these encounters? Keeping your heart open is the first and most important step. Finding peace with the loss, accepting the natural cycle of life, and cultivating positive emotions all help to create a safe and welcoming bridge between the earthly and spiritual realms. Sincere prayers are beneficial, as is remembering the person with joy, speaking to them with love and affection, even without expecting a reply. But most importantly, avoid obsessively waiting for a sign. Spiritual visits don't happen on demand or according to a set schedule. The soul appears when the timing is right and only when it won't cause harm to them or to those still living. That's why allowing go is so necessary. Loving without needing or demanding. Trusting the higher planes to guide the way. And it's remarkable how, even after someone passes, we often begin to see life through a new lens. We become more sensitive to our emotions. We value things more deeply. We come to understand that the things that truly matter are often invisible, felt rather than seen, and that the energy we carry influences not only our own journey but also the journeys of those we love, both here and beyond. It's at this point that many people experience a profound awakening to something essential, the responsibility we have over our own energy. Every thought, every emotion, every act of gratitude or love, all of it contributes to building a bridge between realities. It's no coincidence that so many spiritually advanced souls can visit their loved ones with such ease. They vibrate at a high frequency, and those living individuals who maintain a clean, light, and conscious energy field are able to feel these visits because they are in alignment. If you feel drawn to reconnect, to transform your energy, and to start creating a life that is more aligned with your true self, I encourage you to consider the Quantum Thinking Challenge, a 21-day program where you'll practice gratitude on a daily basis, reprogram your mind, and unlock your full energetic potential. It's 3 weeks of dedicated practice, vibrational elevation, and activating your connection with what is most subtle and true. Many participants have reported significant positive changes happening in their lives. And maybe this is your time too. You can find the access link in the first pinned comment. Throughout the first year after someone passes, there are specific times considered vibrational portals, recognized across various traditions as moments when the connection between worlds is particularly open. The 7th day, as we discussed earlier, marks the first major energetic release.
Look at the word
The 40th day represents the completion of the cycle of detachment from the physical world.
Brought into the
And the
light
first
by His
anniversary
grace.
of the death is considered a complete closure, a sort of spiritual harvest of what was sown during life and in the transition period. When a year has passed since a soul's departure, something shifts energetically and spiritually. It's as if a circle finally closes, allowing that consciousness to move forward more freely. And those who remain on Earth can transform their grief into peaceful memories. By this time, most souls have already settled into their new stage, been redirected to another plane, become involved in new spiritual endeavors, or perhaps even begun preparing for a new earthly journey. For those still living, the first anniversary of a death doesn't have to be solely about sadness and longing. It can also be a celebration of the continuation of life in another form. A time to look up or inward and recognize that everything, absolutely everything, is part of a grander cycle.